Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming on the air because we have a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of our area. Flagler, Putnam there included until about 9 p.m. in the local zone. You also see another polygon just outside of our area, including areas of Lake and Volusia until 9:15. And watching around the Lake George area here with this severe accent. And that warning, they had one down there little while ago outside of the area that got reissued here, as we're seeing a threat for 60-mile-an-hour wind gust and quarter-size hail kind of persist here. It's kind of meandering around that area there, so I need to be mindful of the situation right around Lake George. These are some pretty adverse weather conditions right now, but some of it's starting to creep into our covered area here. As I see our coverage map, we're in Bradford County, but we covered 62 counties. We're always on for any tornado warning storms moving through. We've done that for over the last 5+ years here. Whenever they're moving across any of our 62 counties. But when severe thunderstorm situations, flash flood situations, we kind of use our discretion. This time of year, there's so many of them, we don't come on for maybe quite as many percentage-wise, but we're still on when there's, something that's a little bit more interesting. And I was noting some rotation a little while ago on Lake George there. Wasn't really seeing quite as much of that here in some of the more recent scans, but we'll still keep our eyes on the scenario as it starts to creep up into parts of our covered area. So just have to be kind of mindful of the situation here, obviously, as this is moving on in. I know we're just continuing to give you guys the very latest on exactly what's going on here in the Weather Center. Let me go ahead and switch to another mode here on the Doppler. I know it's been a pretty busy period here lately with the storminess, and you can see here, we're just kind of seeing, there's a broad area of wind enhancement. That's more down just outside the area. As you're looking at things here, and you have Lake George in there. You have parts of Lake County in here. And then this is parts of Volusia County, but in our area, this is parts of Putnam. And this is parts of Flagler. So, starting to kind of get a little bit closer, but the worst of it may still be just outside of the area, really. As we're looking, but you see this northern fringe here kind of coming toward Crescent City there, moving north along US 17. So just have to be very mindful of that here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the Weather Center, obviously. I know it's very important to stay on top of these situations here as we're looking at things. You just have to kind of see how things progress. I know some areas are already getting quite a bit of rain toward parts of southeastern Putnam County as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. And now, speaking of rain, I know not in our covered area, but there's some flash flooding threats that have been ongoing there across parts of central Florida. And you see it's not as heavy a precip as it was as we go between some different Dopplers, but there's been some flash flood warnings in the Orlando area tonight. Some areas getting multiple inches of rain down there. Some of these oranges indicating over 4 inches around the Orla Vista community, a very highly populated area in central Florida, and it fell pretty quickly. As we look at our broad view, we really haven't seen necessarily, anything quite like that in our area. Some areas like Marion getting a little over 2.5 inches there. Northwestern Putnam, some spots getting closer to 3. North of Tallahassee, around 3 inches there. You see some pretty gusty winds around Albany here a little while ago. No warning up that way, but some strong winds did get a gust to 52 miles an hour at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock there. So noteworthy, you see some lightning there south of Tallahassee, lightning there south, central to southeast Georgia. A little bit of that convection still lingering with a few strikes in Nassau County area there. But then our biggest concern is this area here toward Crescent City. As we're just kind of watching this scenario as it's ongoing here across parts of the area. So just have to be very mindful of that, obviously, as we look at things and as we track things here. Just to keep you guys up to date here in the Weather Center. Go ahead and switch to a different source here for a moment. You see what we're talking about. You see, quite a bit of that heavy rainfall there. A lot of that just, into Volusia County as we're looking at things. But, some of that spreading into parts of Putnam and maybe a little bit of Flagler there as well. So just got to keep our eyes on this scenario as we keep giving you guys the very latest here. I know our hail signature trended downward the last few scans, which is good, but we still have to continue to monitor things. You know, this summertime pattern, this stuff will pulse up real quick and pulse down. You know, maybe, pretty quick. I mean, it had been hunting around a little while, but it had been out of the area. And we got the warning, and it, for parts of the area, and it kind of started to fade. So, I know in the state of Florida right now, a lot of these are not in our area, but 17,000 customers are without electricity right now in the state of Florida now. 9,000 or so are in Orange County in Central Florida, where they had some really nasty severe thunderstorm acts, and so that's the bulk of it. But we do have about 900 or so in Putnam County in our area that are without electricity. 271 in Marion County, 51 in St. Johns County. So that kind of tells a story as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. A few thousand over Miami-Dade County, by the way. A lot of, storminess in certain parts of the state here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. Let me go ahead and look at some more information here as it does kind of stream on out. I know in like Texas, they're having a dust storm warning for areas like Odessa and Midland. That's an interesting storyline there. There's a severe thunderstorm watch. Not anything like that here, though, in the Wardar area, obviously. But as we keep looking here at the weather maps, I know, there could be some fog around tonight and then tomorrow here. And then I need a chance of storms, kind of that similar pattern. It's, not the exact same setup, but, storms popping up, getting warm, before that happens generally. That's going to be kind of the similar pattern here as we look ahead over the next week or so. So just kind of be aware of that, obviously. So again, we have this warning here on the board. I know I'm not seeing as much of a signature with this anymore, but we're really far away on the radars. So it's kind of tricky trying to, maybe you pin this down here as we look at the situation. Go ahead and go to velocity. We're going to go ahead and go on over to velocity here, or other mode. You see a little bit of green and red, not really maybe rotation as much as just some wind enhancement north of Pearson. And that's probably going to move into southwestern Flagler here next little bit, which is actually not really, part of that's not really under a warning, but I don't know if that's quite, meeting severe criteria, but maybe moving up in this direction here. As we look here at the scenario, and I see they have, so this box here in our area that we came on for, they just canceled it. They just sent out a statement, they're canceling that warning. So we no longer have a warning in our covered area. So we'll probably wrap here pretty soon. But again, that's the storyline there. They have just dropped that. So that's some good news. You see it's no longer on our other map here. As we're looking, as we're tracking more, this is around the Sellville community and the like here. As we're monitoring things, the works is kind of staying just south of the area here. It was looking like it was trying to make a move into the area a little bit, but now kind of backing off. You see it just went away on that map too. The warning, there is an advisory for the area of southern St. Johns County. If you look up there, see advisory here near the Florida-Georgia border. There's an advisory down to Crawfordville. I know I'll switch radar so you can see this a little bit better, but gusts to about 40 there. This area here, gusts to around 40 in pea-sized hail. Gusts to around 40 pea-sized hail with this box, which I need to switch to radar so you can see the storm better with. Have these storms down here. Of course, we've been referencing this stuff here. May get an advisory. You got some lightning there from Folkestone down to about Hilliard, maybe even Callahan. So just continuing to track everything here in toward the weather center. Let me go ahead and keep looking at some things here. It's still warm out there, that is for sure. You see the view here. All these temperatures that are so warm. Here used to start at 80 degrees. We haven't had precip around today to be, you know, much of a cooling factor, but had some yesterday. Let me take off some of the current information. The models have not been handling things great lately, but let's pull up the model guidance here. It's missing some of the stuff further toward like McCullough, and that's what it's supposed to be looking like, you know, this hour per se, but you know, so we're doing some of it further north here along I-95, but let me kind of progress this here. It says maybe some action you saw in St. John's, maybe in Duval and Nassau. We'll see if it sets up like this. See some stuff lingering in Georgia, you know, for many hours according to this, which could lead to, you know, multiple inches of rain if it sets up as it's describing here. So we'll see. And then it finally fades. You see around sunrise, a little after. Supposed to have a rocket club tomorrow morning. Man missing there from Cape Canaveral. This is the afternoon, by the way, as I'm progressing this further. 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. More storms. It's kind of, you know, maybe the word start tomorrow. We'll see. Kind of progress things into Thursday. So that's kind of the storyline there. Move away from that. But okay, so that's the storyline. And we have a few different warnings across the country. We have a severe thunderstorm warning right now south of Augusta. 60-mile-an-hour winds, penny-sized hail possible there. Some severe weather warning action here coming in. Looking north of Eagle Pass. Even in Oregon, there's a warning popping up. And FSU was playing baseball not too long ago up there in Corvallis. They're not seeing storms, but areas east of Medford are. There's a severe thunderstorm warning there, you know, just north of Klamath Falls, so part of Klamath County there. So we're looking at things out that way. Maybe a few FSU fans stuck around Oregon a couple days after, since they weren't going to Omaha. And the team got back, I believe, last night. But as we go ahead and look here, as we track things, we see this, you know, warning just south of the area. It's kind of been weakening, but that's around Lake George. Some of that could try to get back into southern Flagler County next little bit. May still get another warning. Some of these could still trigger, you know, if there's enough energy around, maybe another warning or two. You know, after we had early this morning, you just never know. Well, here in the meteorology picture, as we're tracking things, and we have all these flash flood, you know, threats here with a couple warnings towards Central Florida. They picked up, you know, 3-4 plus inches of rain around areas like Orla Vista. Some very highly populated areas pick up a lot of rain in a short period of time. That's not a good combination. I know some areas still need rain, but you don't ever want it too, you know, quick there, where it's too much too quick. Let me see if there's any questions or comments from any of the viewers at home. You know, we're always trying to keep an eye on things. I appreciate everybody watching on the different platforms. You know, interesting to see some of the core temperatures in northern Georgia there. 60s, you know, and the like up that way. Around University of Georgia, that's kind of intriguing. You go back 4 hours, even then, you know, you had some cooler air, but that was because of some storms in the region, you know, in that region there. So interesting to see that. Didn't really, you know, see an uptick there in those readings. So that's the storyline there. We're always giving you the latest on the different platforms. We'll be back on, you know, if we need to, for these severe warnings and the like. And, you know, if we don't need to actually cut back in, we'll post there on Facebook there. And then Twitter/X. you know, with the very latest warning information. If it's, you know, a severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood warning, it's not as, you know, noteworthy here overall, but you know, some of those would be on for some of them, you know, the situations. If they're tornado warnings, we're always on for those, obviously. Because it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family here in toward the weather center. So, again, we're going to keep our eyes on the weather pattern, obviously, here in toward the weather center. We'll be back on as needed with the very latest, and we'll have a formal update here later tonight, so make sure you tune in for that. Assuming we don't get inundated with a bunch of warnings in the next few hours, then we may just, you know, if we're having to cover all those, then maybe we'll just go ahead and not do the update for, you know, on, you know, later on in the next few hours. But the plan is to still have our formal update later tonight. So we'll see you guys then. Thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me.